Welcome everyone, Adam the Woo here. I'm inviting you on a journey, a cross-country one at that, coast to coast. The filming locations of the 1994 award-winning classic film, Forrest Gump, starring Tom Hanks, directed by Robert Zemeckis. Join me, shall you? As the feather floats all around, you can distinctly see this building off in the distance. And down below, the sidewalk has been repurposed, but the cracks on the curb, they're still in the precise locations. In fact, if you look at this screenshot, the yellow paint used to stretch all the way to this point, and you can see little remnants there. Right smack dab in the middle of that wall, they set up a park bench, and all the narration of the entire film was done right there, sitting on that bench. There are a couple of interesting facts, however, about this area. For example, the direction of traffic flows in the opposite direction of what we're used to. In fact, the one-way street sign points the correct direction. This is the angle you don't normally see, where he was staring while he was explaining his story. Watch out for that feather though, it's coming in hot. There's a feather. He just landed on his foot. They have placed this protective barricade to keep the chocolate eaters out of the garden. It helps you adhere to your diet. It's a good thing. Welcome to Greenbow, Alabama. In reality, South Carolina. Across the railroad tracks, there was a Sinclair gas station. This was all themed to the era. Mama Gump walked her son across the road, past the barber shop, and he got his foot stuck in a grate that was mounted right here. In fact, if you look closely, you can see the holes where the prop gate was wedged against the concrete. You have to look very carefully, but they're still there. These gentlemen are sitting in a makeshift seating area. You can see the plank protruding from the wall where the barber pole used to be. Now, a bicycle has taken both their places. She chastised the men who were staring. Have you ever seen a boy with braces on his legs before? In this window is where the television, where they saw Elvis performing, shaking his hips. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. And the reflection in the window displays this structure. And notice the awning has been removed, but the shell is still there against the wall. This was not made for children's eyes. The Gump boarding house was down that pathway, now blocked by a locked gate. And this road was covered in dirt to appear that it was on the outskirts, just past the city limit sign of Greenbow. On two occasions, two different Forrests were waiting for the bus. It pulled up across that bridge. There used to be a tree stump right in here, but it has been uprooted. Forrest Gump's son and adult Forrest as a child, just waiting for the bus right there. This driveway needs no introduction. Run, Forrest, run. That's where it happened. The bullies were chasing him on their bicycles. He was trotting down this very dirt section, trying to get away. His braces fell off, and he realized he could run like the wind. Down at the end was where the homestead was built, but it was destroyed, bulldozed, immediately after filming. Down this opposite road, there was no gate, and I didn't see any no trespassing signs. So drove up, and this is where there was a swing where he was dangling, and his mom was getting acquainted with the school principal. And there used to be a brick wall here as well, which is no longer there. But the boarding house, right there, and the water you see in the background was the backdrop of their wedding. And there is a new homestead, which has been built since those days. Right there. Wow. Incredible. That worked out surprisingly well. I didn't think the odds would be in my favor getting on that property. But that was the open gate. Moving on to the next location. This old schoolhouse is under remodel. I'm hoping I can get indoors, see what's inside. Young Forrest hanging out right there while his mom talked to the principal. The office used to be here. Now it's a hallway, but you can see the base of where the principal's door once was. And along the right side of this wall were some water fountains. Here it is, the water fountain. This windy road leads to the forefront of a recently repurposed and widened bridge where as a youth and as an adult, he ran along past this river, and it's still used as a fishing bridge, just like it was in the movie. The trees on the left and the right, as he continues to trek down this road, have also been removed. I was just talking to some of the locals, and they said there were some oak trees right here that provided shade and some pull-offs where their vehicles would be out of the sun. So the story is true. They have removed all the trees in this section. A fake facade of a building from the University of Alabama was built here in California on this campus. And the way I figured it out was that structure in the distance is the same one seen here over his shoulder. Right there. Movie trickery. She dropped her book. He went over, handed it to her. You dropped your book, man. And they made their way in the fake facade. Upon closer inspection, one of these little areas could have been the spot. The brickwork and concrete patterns all pretty much match up. It was a very rainy night when he paid a visit to her dormitory. And take a look at the windows on either side. They still look the same, as does the rockwork itself. Matches up perfectly. The name of the hall has changed. They placed a sign over the David X Marks sign. And after 5 years of playing college football, can you believe it? He got himself a college degree. Right there, under that archway. He did it. They've changed the layout of the sidewalks and the brickwork along the ground. But this is where he was approached to join the military. At the corner piece of this building, standing with his mom. She was so proud he graduated. They have expanded this bridge considerably from a teeny tiny 2-lane one to an expansive, now 4-lane. This is where he told Jenny he was going off to Vietnam. And the seafood place you see in the distance, that was the club she worked at. And they still call it Love's, even though the business model slightly different. A total stranger pulled over to give her a ride. In this day and age, I wonder if someone will give me a ride. Fail. I'm standing in the former driveway of the historic Ambassador Hotel, seen off in the distance. Look at this massive pylon. In fact, that's all that remains of the structure. It's been torn down for years. Just over this wall, you can get a glimpse of the empty field where it once stood. A couple of moments happened inside its doors. She's playing guitar, sitting on a chair, up on stage, as well as doing some illegal narcotics at a table, full-on party mode. But what I find interesting are the tie-ins that relate to this place. Robert Kennedy was assassinated here, mentioned in the film, and some of the very first Academy Award celebrations are right over there. And Forrest Gump knows a thing or two about winning some Oscars. The cast and crew did not go to Vietnam. They were roaming around this area. There is a lagoon sequence where Bubba dies, and I can't get to it. It's blocked off. They are doing construction. In fact, you see the lights back there. That is a security guard who has told me you cannot get down to where I'm trying to get. But this is the area that stood in for Vietnam. The hospital scenes were in fact not located in a hospital at all, but here at the Ebell Theater, not located in the big auditorium, but tucked away above the courtyard on the second floor. The windows located towards the top of the roof that stretch all the way across, that's where his bed would have been located. Right about there. This guy has done and seen a lot of things over the course of his existence. One of them being one of the few people that was able to hear the famous speech about the war that was given down there, because the rest of the crowd, they couldn't hear it. Someone unplugged the speakers. He ended up in a single file line, unknowingly corralled with everyone else making their way to the stage, but not before taking a photo from this angle, wandering down this wall. That's a photo opportunity right there. Nailed it. A platform was constructed just about where the stairs begin. Microphone placed right there. He was very confused by the guy who kept repeating the F word. He liked to use that F word, F this and F that. He wasn't used to that kind of language. And while he spoke those relatively unheard words, there was a large congregation of people lining all the sides of the reflecting pool. And while it is assumed that thousands upon thousands of people showed up, in reality, at the bottom of these stairs, just enough extras to fill the front section were needed. This is the beginning time frame of computer-generated images, and they just duplicated them all around the water. Movie magic. And as luck would have it, the love of his life just so happened to be here. He darted down this stairwell, and she jumped into the water right over there, hanging out in this general vicinity, when suddenly, hey, I know that guy. And upon impulse, stuck her feet in here, and it's much shallower than I thought. Look at this. It's only up to there. But it came up to her knees. It must have filled this thing up a lot higher. Either that or she's not very tall. While on their walk, they made their way down Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House. There was a candlelight procession making its way in front of the building, and they were here in the foreground. He sure was happy to spend time with her here in his nation's capital. All in all, he became very familiar with that place. He was invited a multitude of times based on his accomplishments. One time, he drank himself about 15 Dr. Peppers. He had to pee. And on another occasion, Nixon invited him to stay at a new fancy hotel. It's very modern. Also known as the Watergate. And the way they filmed that particular scene is they used the room right here Tom Hanks looked out and he saw all the flashlights right above that ledge. There were some offices. And he called the maintenance man. So there must be a fuse out. He was having trouble sleeping. The next day, Nixon resigned. The logo has changed a little bit over the years, but the name remains the same. From up on the roof, you can get about the best angle of where the offices were. The men were right down in there with their lights ablazing. The actual scandal room was room 214 at the time. They did not film that particular room, which has now been converted to room number 205. New management has changed it, but the inside of the room, the Nixon room, is adorned with paraphernalia and furniture from the era. As nightfall set in, a stroll was had down this pathway, sharing memories, talking about the past, letting each other know what they had been up to. But the very next morning, goodbyes were once again said in this very parking lot. Her departure bus was located in the middle here, not off to the left or right in the designated car spots, but in the middle. In this grassy field is where the hippie camp would have been. All their tents, everyone just chilling up there on the grassy area. And in the background, the Jefferson Memorial, which can be seen when he's yelling at her boyfriend Alabama as she departs. She takes her hand and flashes the peace sign in the back window, saying goodbye once again. Rosemary's Baby was on the marquee at the historic Chinese Theater. And the boulevard has seen some changes over the years. But right here, next to Jean Harlow's star, Jenny and her friends were sitting there busking, singing some songs. It's a little different, but the star and the sidewalk still the same. Welcome to New York City. Well, not really. But with the appropriate amount of fake snow and signage, anyone could be fooled. Up on this awning was a liquor store sign, and to the left of it was a strip club. Down at the end of the road was a huge Coca-Cola mural. The Art of Illusion. They crossed the road full of taxi cabs. Lieutenant Dan almost got hit by a vehicle and shouted out, "Hey, I'm walking here, I'm walking here." Right there. And in the same area was the exit to the television show. There used to be a door right there against the wall and a ramp that made its way towards where I'm standing. You see the coal sign, the neon, still exists, even though the door has been removed. And the ramp is no more. Lieutenant Dan careened into that wall. Quite the illusion. Looks very cold, blustery, as they were perched in that exact spot. The interiors of this spot were also used. The celebration of New Year's Eve took place inside those doors. This majestic tree sits in the yard of Bubba's mom's homestead. Now the camera angle was more towards the water, facing this direction, but there is a fence here, private property. Located in that direction was where Bubba was laid to rest. Pay close attention to the tree located smack dab in the center between the others. it kind of twists its way up to the sky. It's so distinct, in fact, that you can coordinate where the headstone was just to the right of it, of his best good friend. From another angle, zooming in with the lens, standing under that very branch, right there. On a side note, look at the boat behind his head. In the yard sits this sea vessel. Is that the boat? Is that the prop boat? Still in front of Bubba's mom's house? Could be. After, this ground is not very stable. After he paid his respects, he went to keep a promise, and the dock has been destroyed by past storms. But that's where he wandered down and purchased himself a shrimp boat. Even the electrical pole and the meter box right there. Holy cow, that is pretty neat. Pretty freaking neat. You really have to be on a mission to find that one. From this elevated angle is the best view of where he was reunited with Lieutenant Dan. Check out the grassy area, and behind it is a dock. Now in front of it is a boat right there in the center of the screen. Just about there was the free-floating platform that they created, that his boat came in from the right of the screen and smashed it to oblivion. That's my boat. For some reason, that graffiti wants me to jump just to ruin the movie magic for a minute. Spoiler alert. When he jumps out of the boat is heading this way. Unmanned, it somehow does a circle, goes around while he's talking to Lieutenant Dan and smashes into the dock. How is that even possible? Movie magic, that's how. If you're gonna pray for shrimp, you've come to the right place. Lieutenant Dan doesn't pray though. He just sits in the back and drinks. The door's locked, but if we peek through the window, you can see the two windows and the podium in the middle. It's where he was singing in the choir. The woodwork piece he's standing in front of, at first I thought they removed it, but upon closer inspection, it's still in there. They've just added a little top part, a little revamping, but that's the same piece. By standing on this wooden staircase, you get a peek through the back windowsill where Dan was sitting between the window and the door, not joining in the singing festivities. The front door swings inward, leaving it sitting just about there, which leads me to believe this is the same one. Notice the knob, the recently overpainted lockbox to the left, and the smaller lock at the top. Push that door in, and we have recreated movie magic. Its fictional name was the Foursquare Baptist Church, and that cross on the steeple, that was just a prop, as was the wooden sign they built right here. And after he made a lot of money, he donated a lot of fundage back to this very facility. He also unselfishly gave more money to this place, which bared the name after him, Gump Medical Center. I was just noticing the brick sign tucked away next to this tree used to reside over to the left just a little bit. They have shifted it. The lettering is the same coloration and font spells out different words, but they most likely have those original letters inside a storage room in there. The welcome sign right here off the road, the Magnolia State. And he just kept running and running and running and running with no agenda behind it. He just kept on going for no particular reason. He ran clear to the ocean. coast to shining coast. Along the wooden pier, passing that light, next to this railing with the beautiful mountains in the background, he stopped right here. Now they did move that seat to the other side, but he looked over the ocean and thought, you know what? I'm gonna turn around and go the other way. He'd only just begun. Traffic has stopped. This barricade has been lowered. There is a boat approaching, and the bridge is spinning around in a circular fashion. I've never seen that before. It is a very busy thoroughfare. As he approached the camera, the news crews and interviewers were wondering, why the heck is he running? Are you doing it for animals? Are you doing it for women's rights? I just felt like running. He wasn't running alone for very long, however. This guy charged up saying, I'll follow you anywhere. Check out the school zone sign and the tree to the right of the beard and the pole that still exists. The road you see in the background, that's new. This was a difficult spot to find. Fun fact, that's a relic right there. This no parking sign, a piece of film history. The terrain has changed quite a bit since then. In fact, this was the original thoroughfare, and the homes across the road have been bulldozed. But pay close attention to the end of that shot. You will notice this drainage grate and a little bench that sat there and a bus stop. The concrete still exists. I always found it interesting. He never asked for company. He never specifically said, hey, follow me. Everyone just did. They just tagged along, whether he liked it or not. If you're in the bumper sticker business, next to this Mission ice cream mural, it's a pretty good track record for success. In fact, as everyone is making their way down that direction, you could see that mural off to the left-hand side. The pile of dung would have been right here, next to that grate and these pillars. Just be careful. You don't want that stuff on your shoe. It never comes off your shoe. It takes a lot of work to get that stuff off the bottom of your feet. The guy stood in the middle of the road in bewilderment of the idea that was just presented to him. He went with it though, and ended up making a lot of money. Look over to the left, this little window leading down to a basement. It's still there. It happens. Sometimes it happens. Just about where these desert weeds are was a puddle. It splashed up on his face. Luckily, there was a gentleman with a yellow t-shirt, handed it to him, and he wiped the mud off. They have placed this concrete barricade where the jogging took place, but the twin arrows there on the left are still stuck in the ground. This trading post has seen better days. It's now completely abandoned. Here's a better look at the arrows themselves, made out of wood, standing the test of time. And this is what it looks like inside. Mama always said, you gotta put the past behind you. And this place certainly has. The actress that played Jenny in the film, her name was Robin Wright. And this square bears her last name. And coincidentally, Wright, no pun intended, over there was the restaurant she worked at. And they have even adorned the front window with some of the famous sayings and a photograph of the shot. You can use the fire hydrant and the windowsill to tell where she was serving the dinner, right here on this table. Tucked away in this little corner is where the TV was perched, watching the news, and the murals on the wall still exist. She was standing over here, meandered her way towards the table. If you look at the left of the screen, you'll see a fountain and a swing set where Haley Joe Osment was playing. The playground has been removed, but the tree line still matches up, as well as the brick building off in the distance. It was in front of the backdrop of that pump house and this walkway that right over there she informed him that she was sick and agreed to marry him. Right there. These look like comfortable shoes, but to be honest, they're just a little bit too tight for me, so I'll just go with what I'm already wearing. Seeing these bags packed in chocolates has inspired me. Oh yes, it's time. It's time. Sometimes you just don't want to run anymore. The sun is cooperating very nicely as it shines through the clouds there. Very majestic. Very majestic indeed. After all that time, all those miles, all those years, he had a lot of people following him. Quiet! He's gonna say something.
I'm pretty tired. Think I'll go home now.
All right, whose feather is this? I couldn't tell where heaven stopped And the earth began. It was right here, as he's explaining to Jenny, one of his last conversations with her about what it's like to run through the desert, how beautiful it is. When the sun comes up, he rounded this corner, and the camera turns away from his face, showing all of this terrain and revealing a sunrise. She expressed how she wished she would have been with him, and he assured her that she was. I've always wondered what it would be like to be out here, alone with your thoughts, in the middle of nowhere. And now I know.